Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
And we'll start fading it out right there. Welcome, everybody, on a Monday night. Another victory weekend for the Wolverines. They're sitting at 2-0. They really haven't broken a sweat yet, and we're going to get into a lot of that. Not surprised that the first comment out of the gate has to do with Mel Tucker. We will get into that, no question. It's not really going to be like a I mean, Chris and I, we've heard a lot of people talking about it on social media, on different platforms. Obviously, Spartan Radio was pretty tuned up today. It's not exactly going to be like a bash Mel Tucker like pile on.
Well, come on now, Brandon. We're not going to have many of these opportunities.
But a little bit, because frankly, the dude deserves it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I had some thoughts about it, Chris. I'm sure we'll get into it a lot, so I don't really want to launch right into it right away.
I have a feeling he will be front and center on one of our favorite Monday segments today. So maybe we should we just save it for that?
I mean, it's not very far away. We could probably just save it. We'll get to it, and we'll go from there. And that segment's usually a little shorter.
Just hang around today. Yeah, hang around for our TFG segment, because I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on that one tonight.
Just real quick, Chris, I wondered if you had seen, while we're on the subject, have you seen this moniker for the head man in East Lansing? Have you seen that?
I have not. I have
Mel
seen.
Tugger.
Listen,
Mel Tugger. That's
there
Tugger
has been
with 2 G's.
There's been no shortage of. I mean, we talked about this before, man. Like how and look, I want to make this clear. I'm not making light of sexual harassment, anything like that. Like, that's not what this is. This, like, take that and put that off to the side. I'm just saying that given the circumstances and what Mel Tucker has already admitted to doing, how ironic and hilarious and perfect is it that the entire Michigan State fan base built this whole everything on Tuck coming. It's too perfect. Because now when you hear Tuck coming, it has such a totally different meaning. It's yeah. I mean, Dan Thornton gets it. It's just chopping wood. You know what? Wow. Like all the things that are associated with Mel Tucker. Now it really adds up. I think it's look again. The whole situation and whether somebody felt that they were harassed, like that's terrible. But as it pertains particularly to Mel Tucker and the whole persona that he built at Michigan State, the vibrato, the watches, the chains, the cigars, the rental cars, all that bullshit. This is a hilarious way to see it all come to an end.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it really was like the entire marketing approach for their football program is now just so
oops.
It couldn't be more spot on for what was going on. I mean, it really could not be more spot on. All right, we will get into that. It's not going to be a secret why we're going to focus on Mel Tucker here in a little bit when we get to that certain segment on our Monday. But let's do some football talk. Let's talk about Michigan football.
Okay.
Their 35-7 win over UNLV on Saturday. That was the final. Chris, you had it at 42-10. I had it at 48-0. I thought they get close to pitching a shutout again, and they really did. Another garbage score for the opponent, and Trent had it at 45-10. So we were all somewhat close. I mean, nobody was too crazy with the scores in either direction, but at the end of the day, now that we've had a couple days to digest it, what do you think when you see that 35-7 again? This is not 81-0 or 73-0 that we see some of these teams putting up, but it's another very easy cruise control type of win for Michigan. They're 2-0. Everybody knew they would be 30-3, 35-7. Thoughts?
I walk away feeling I could say this. I routinely forget that we are watching the number 2 team in the country when I watch them play. And that's not to take anything away from them, but it's just the games go by, and JJ has obviously looked incredible. He's been extremely accurate. And I put out the article today, the footwork, the vision downfield, the types of throws he's making. Jim Harbaugh talked about it today at the press conference, just that he's playing at an elite level. But even still, I find myself wanting more. And the irony is that I wanted out of the rushing game. Brandon, this was what we wanted. We wanted pass heavy, JJ McCarthy, wheeling and dealing. Like, this is what we wanted. But I didn't want to sacrifice the running game to get it either. And I think that's kind of where, that's where I'm like, okay, but now we're missing a big element or element on the other side. And it's clear that, and even Jim Harbaugh talked about it a little bit today, they're not happy with the rushing performance. There's confidence and belief that it's going to get better. But even after week 2, they acknowledge that, hey, we got to get better at some things up front. We got to get better at some things at the running back position. And I just thought that unit, that group would be much further along by week 2 than what they've been.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't think that. It's funny you mentioned that, but yeah, we never wanted to sacrifice the run game to get the passing game going. Wanted them both to be working, wanted everything to work. Run it here, pass it here, 40, 50, 60 points. Instead, it's 30 or 35. I mean, I'd like to see a little bit more, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The coaches want that. The players certainly want that. Had a very, very informal 2-minute conversation with Blake Corum and his father as they were driving out of the stadium, and they both said it. Blake said knocking the rust off a little bit, want to get the O-line a little bit more involved, want to get the running game. It's not just us saying it. Jim Harbaugh addressed it. The linemen are talking about it. Sharon Moore's thinking about it. So all of that stuff is there. And yeah, Michigan's still sitting at 2-0. And again, I've said the joke a couple times, they're not even sweating in their uniforms. They're just walking through these games, it feels like, and you come away with a pretty easy win. So yeah, nothing to get your feathers ruffled about, but I mean, there are still some things that need to be better, cleaner, sharper, and more dominant, if you want to be frank about it, because these teams that they're playing, I just wouldn't have expected it to look like this. That's about where I'm at.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because Saturday was a little bit chaotic for me. Didn't Bryant have more rushing yards against UNLV than Michigan did? I mean, it's unacceptable.
Yeah,
it's unacceptable.
I just saw a comment here. I wanted to address it real quick. Not football. Justin Jordan is asking if we're not going live on YouTube anymore. We should be. I have the green check up there that says it's currently live on YouTube, and I see some YouTube users in here. So if there's an issue there, let me know, because that's news to me if something's not working correctly on YouTube. But as far as I know, it is. So hopefully there's not an issue there, and maybe Justin, it's something on your end. I'm not sure, but same thing we always do. I click 3 boxes: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. It goes live on all 3, and as far as I know, it is working. So there you go. All right, yeah, I see a couple people saying they're watching on YouTube right now. So yeah, Justin, I don't know what's going on over there, but I think it's working on my end. So hopefully you can get that figured out.
Yep, he found it.
Okay, good. All right, so Chris, we did not get a chance to do this because we had our abbreviated show last week while you were in Grand Ledge getting ready for the helicopter flyover. By the way, if you hadn't had a chance to see Chris's video, it's pretty badass on his Facebook account, on the Instagram account. Yeah, pretty sick, dude. Pretty sick the way that came together. I know I know you said you felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, from a production standpoint, everything when you're up there is a learning experience. You're just trying to make things work on the fly. There's all kinds of variables coming your way. But at the end of the day, I think I said this on Saturday and just want to reiterate, I'm not joking when I say, outside of, marrying my wife and my kids being born, like two of the top experiences in my life now have come courtesy of the Michigan Army National Guard. And that was, last summer when we went up in the Chinooks with the entire Michigan football team, did a flyover of Michigan Stadium, which was incredible. And then having the opportunity to get in a Black Hawk and do it on game day and just, be able to see everything that goes into it, all the planning that goes into it, high character people, great camaraderie there, all of that stuff, man. I just, I can't thank that group of folks enough for allowing me to be a part of something that really is so rare and so special that it'll stick with me for the rest of my life. So so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's up on the Facebook page. It's on Twitter. It's on Instagram. It's going to be on the YouTube page. And then we're going to go ahead and put it in an SI article as well. So we're going to push it out as many different avenues as we can. And the bigger reason being is to try to bring attention to what the Michigan Army National Guard is doing. Like, I didn't really know much about what they do prior to getting involved with them. And it turns out they do some pretty cool shit. And I would encourage people to check it out and explore, what they're all about out there in Grand Ledge.
Amen. Absolutely. So do that. Check that out on all those.
They let us have Rosie on the base, for God's sake. Come on. But I mean, they let us bring our 30-foot thrice broken down RV on the tarmac for a photo. I mean, come on, look at this. These guys have opened their doors to us and what we do. Just again, can't say enough about that group out there, and look forward to working with them again in the future.
Absolutely. So because of that, because Chris was gearing up for all that and going through briefings and trying to feel important for a day. Chris, did you feel important? It looked pretty freaking important, man. I felt
like I was with a lot of important people.
Yeah, that's
that's what I felt.
That's fair. So because of that, we didn't get to do. Chris, you didn't get to call me dumb or smart, and I, missed out on that opportunity. I actually ended up doing pretty well. We'll go over those quickly, and then we'll get into the rest of our segments. But and this is one we just talked about, Chris. I predicted I backed JJ off. And he actually had a nice run. He had a couple of nice runs. He had a keeper for 17 yards on his own read, then another, like a draw later. I'm not sure if it was designed or not, but right up the middle for about 10 or 12. But anyways, I thought that Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards 100% will get into the end zone this week. Blake did 3 times. Donovan Edwards, though, bro, 6 carries for 9 yards. Like, I believe Chris said I could rush for more than that on 6 carries. Did you say something like that, Chris? After the game?
Yes, I could. Wait, how many carries was it? 9? 9 carries?
6 carries for 9
yards. All right. If you give me 6 carries on Saturday against UNLV behind that line, could I manage 9 yards and 6 carries? I believe so. I think I could do it.
Wow.
I mean, I've got the dad strength. We talked about that before on the show. 220 pounds just leaning forward. I got to believe I could get to 9 yards. Not to take anything away from what's going on with Donovan, but yeah, man, honestly, if I were to put one of the biggest puzzling, biggest surprises so far in the early season, it has been the lack of production from Donovan Edwards.
Yeah, no question about it. Sometimes he looks so fast, dude. There's a valued opinion. James Corum says, "Heck no," all caps on your production, and I trust.
James, come on, man. Okay, how about this? Let's reverse it. 9 carries for 6 yards.
6 yards. I will take James Corum's opinion to the bank right there. All right, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Donovan, he looks fast, he looks explosive, but there's not an opening there, or the angle's a little. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but through 2 games, he has not picked up where he left off, and I know he's probably bummed out about that. And the whole running game, the running game as a whole, is still kind of figuring some stuff out. It looks like against these inferior opponents. Number 2, I said that Roman Wilson will score again, and score again. He did twice, in fact, Chris. He's now up to 5 receiving touchdowns on the year. He caught one from 13 yards out. And then from 47 yards out, caught it short across the little crossing pattern and just turned on the Jets, man. So your boy, number 1, Roman Wilson, is off and running through these first 2 games.
He is leading the Big Ten in touchdown receptions with 5. I don't believe any other wide receiver has more than 2 at this point. And so he is setting the pace in the conference. And again, I'll go back to leading up to the season, I felt like he was going to be the guy. I just felt like that he was on the verge of something special. And certainly through the first 2 weeks, you can see that He's JJ's favorite target at the moment. He is very, very productive when he gets the ball, good at creating space. I mean, everything you hoped he would be this year, early on, he looks like it. I think he's going to be the guy that replaces Ronnie Bell's production. Seems like that's going to be the case.
Yeah. I've been most impressed with his hands. I mean, he's been like snatching the ball. JJ is not taking anything off of some of these, and he is catching them so clean. I knew he could run. I knew he was fast. The way he's been catching some of these passes, the one, the third one last week in the corner of the end zone, and then the 47-yarder. I mean, JJ is throwing it like a fastball, putting it right on him, and he's making it look really easy and really smooth. So yeah, he's off to a great start. Number 3, these ones are always a little tricky, but I thought he might return to the lineup and do some big things. I said that Will Johnson will intercept a pass, and then he didn't play, and then he did play. And then he didn't play. It was like, I was got to get into this a little bit with my burning questions. He played 8 snaps. I don't really understand what that was about exactly. Like, maybe it was, hey, Will, get in there and show these yahoos how to do it real quick. And then, because like, that's really what it looked like. He didn't intercept a pass. He was barely in there, but I do feel like when he's back in the lineup and in there all the time, he's going to be around the ball a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to assume so.
If quarterbacks choose to test him, that's a whole other argument.
There's the caveat there, but when he's on the field, I think he's going to be effective. He's certainly one of those guys when you're talking about the Michigan defense and how good it's going to be this year. He was a major factor, if not the factor, when talking about where it starts on this defense. So excited to get him back. Yeah, it is a little bit puzzling. You get him out there for a few snaps and then you don't see him again. So to me, it's like, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? And if he's not healthy, what is, you said eight snaps he got?
8 snaps.
I mean, what's really the value in that other than maybe just getting him on the field and reacclimated, get him out and live to fight another week. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, going through warm-ups again, him and Rodmore both looked pretty good. Again, they don't look hurt, but then as soon as the game kind of starts, no gloves on, helmet kind of off to the side. I'm like, all right, well, they're not playing. And then all of a sudden, second or third series, Will Johnson's out there. I'm like, what is that about? And then he didn't play again the rest of the game. So, yeah, it was a little strange. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I don't really know what the point was of that. He actually had a couple of really nice reps. He absolutely locked down one receiver. I think it may have either led to a sack or a tip pass. I can't remember. I commented about it during the game, but he looks ready to play. It's just strange that he only played the 8 snaps and then was back out again. So we'll see. Number 4, James Turner will be perfect in week 2, and he was. He didn't attempt a field goal, so that's, a little easier of an outing. He tried 2 50-yarders in the first game, made one, missed one. But he was 5 of 5 for his extra points, and he did miss one of those in week 1. So, I don't know, man. He's a veteran guy. He's a Michigan native. He probably had nerves through the roof on that first game. I think he's going to be fine, and he was good on Saturday.
Yeah, I remember, we talked about, how much of a concern was special teams after week 1. The extra points are like shooting free throws. You get to the line, you get your shot going, and then when you need to hit a 50-yarder, you get ready for it. And I think what we wanted to see was that there weren't going to be ongoing issues on simple things, easy things like extra points. And the fact that he was perfect, was able to get through week 2 without any issues. I think we talked about it before. Veteran kicker, been doing it a while. He was really, really good at Louisville. And I think you're right. First time in the big house in front of 110,000 people. You're taking over for Jake Moody, who was one of the all-time greats here. Probably a little bit of pressure on your shoulders. Yeah. And it seems like he's starting to settle in.
Yeah, so we'll see how that continues to develop moving forward. And last but not least, Chris, I'm gonna ask for a 1-yard grace period here. Let's see what you think.
Okay.
Given the circumstances, he played one play. He got pile drived into the wall of the stadium. I said that Jack Tuttle will break off a 15+ yard run. His one run was 14 yards. He got late hit out of bounds, piled into the kicking net, injured, didn't play. Do I get a slight bonus?
Well,
there,
Brandon,
what do we think?
Brandon, you've gambled enough. You've played around in Vegas enough to know you're not getting any extra credit for being almost there.
Close,
so I'm sorry,
count,
Brandon. Nope, close does not count. You fell short this week. Maybe next week. Sounds like he's going to be back practicing. Good to see that there was no serious injury on that late hit, and he'll be back in the fold. Because to be quite honest, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point here, that QB2 position is still very, very much wide open, according to Jim Harbaugh. And I think anybody who's watched his team play the first 2 weeks can see that.
I was pretty pissed. I'm not sure how it happened or why, but at the stadium after that run, he was credited with an 18-yard run. I was like, oh, I'm prophetic, dude. Look at that. And then they somehow took it down to 14.
Well, maybe that's because he got thrown 5 yards out of bounds, late hit. Maybe they gave him that.
They marked it incorrectly, or maybe it was the penalty yardage threw him off. I don't know, whatever. But it was a 14-yard run. It was a nice play. Unfortunately, it was the only play he was in for. His little audition as the backup QB did not last very long, and he looked all right once he came walking off. I mean, it was a very, very late hit. The DB actually hit him beyond the yellow line, which is beyond the white. It was so far out of bounds.
Egregious.
Again, piled him into the kicking net and some coolers and some other shit over there, and probably didn't feel too good. But I think he'll be all right.
And I thought it was interesting to hear Harbaugh say this, because you typically don't get things like this out of him at press conferences, at least in my experience. But when Tuttle came out, Davis Warren came in, and Harbaugh said flat out, it was a mistake on our side, on the coaching side. That wasn't what the order was supposed to be, and the goal was to get Alex Orji in the game last weekend. So there's certainly going to be an emphasis to get number 10 on the field this Saturday under the lights against Bowling Green. I think Jane Denegal is going to be the first guy off the bench, and then they're going to go to Alex Orji, assuming the game goes the way that everybody thinks it's going to go, which is Michigan up big heading into the second half. So, that QB2 spot, man, look, I love JJ McCarthy, fingers crossed, hope he's going to be healthy all year, but they've got to get that sorted out, settled, and figured out, because, my gut feeling was telling me it was Jack Tuttle, given, he was a veteran, he had all the experience. In the spring game, he looked pretty sharp. He just looked like he had command in the huddle. Just haven't seen enough out of those guys to feel comfortable that if JJ does go down, that, especially with the lack of a rushing attack so far and how much they've relied on JJ's, elite ability, you take that off the table, and this looks like a different team.
Yeah, there's no question. Yeah, I liked what I saw from Jack Tuttle in the spring game as well. I thought he would be the guy, and now we're not so sure. So,
and I know we talked about, Davis Warren and these guys, they're not playing with the first unit, and maybe it might look a little bit different with the first unit guys, but it's not going to look like JJ's looked the first 2 weeks. And so you got to get that QB2 spot figured out.
No doubt. And it's funny you bring that up. I did my, Jim Harbaugh's most interesting things from his press conference today. I also love the fact that he just called it like it was. He even said Mike Hart's name. He's like, Mike Hart screwed that up. Like that was I'm like, yeah, that is not typical. He doesn't usually do stuff like that, but hey, it is what it is. The order got a little mixed up, and they didn't get to see what they wanted to see. Now we'll see it in week 3, and yes, potentially the first Alex Orji sighting of the season.
Are we going to see it, Brandon? Are we going to see it, or is it all just another dangling a carrot out there to keep us excited about number 10?
I think we'll see him at quarterback. I don't know about being the greatest kick returner on the planet yet, because he hasn't been back there for that yet. But
no, that's Jake Thaw.
I do. Well, I do think we will see Orji at quarterback. It looks like it's trending that way. So there you go. All right. So there's my 5. I ended up getting 3 out of 5 right. Jack Tuttle missed it by a yard. Donovan Edwards couldn't find the end zone. That's where I boned up on the "you're dumb, you're smart." Well, Chris, it's time.
This fucking guy.
It's time.
This fucking guy.
All right, look, Chris. I'm going to turn the music back off now, so that way we don't get our echo situation going.
Yeah, this is going to be a long one.
But yeah, we're 3 minutes in. TFG is typically a 5 to 8 minute segment. I expect it to go well north of that now. I've already put his name up there in the bright lights. We've talked about him at the beginning of the show. Mel Tugger.
The fans are already using Mel Tugger.
I love the Mel Tugger nickname. I think that is fucking hilarious, dude. I really do. Thanks for the $5 on the tuck coming there. Interesting spelling. And thank you for the other $5 there. Holy Reaver 97 offer some insight. Yeah, Chris and I were talking about that before the show. Why the hell Mel Tucker felt the need to mention Jim Harbaugh in his statement, I could not tell you. Couldn't tell you.
Oh, you know why, Brandon? Because it's so on brand for the people in East Lansing. They cannot screw up. They cannot screw up and talk about it without also mentioning Michigan in some way, shape, or form. It is just like clockwork with those folks out there. Very on brand.
Who would hire Mel after this incident? Pornhub? I don't know. Probably not any probably not any institutions, if I had to guess. That's where my mind went first. Whatever. I don't know. But Fletch lives daily. What was said about Harbaugh? Basically just that Brenda Tracy apparently didn't think super highly of him. I think was like the paraphrase. I don't remember the exact quote. I don't have it in front of me, but
essentially saying that he wasn't aware that she had some negative things to say about X, Y, and Z, and also that she wasn't she had some unfavorable things to say about Jim Harbaugh. Basically I think what he was trying to do was set the stage that, like, look, she's got issues with a lot of people. It's not just me,
Exactly.
She's got issues with Harbaugh. She's got issues with this group.
I will read the quote. It's the last sentence of his second paragraph. It's from Mel Tucker. This is him speaking. Quote, "I was absolutely unaware of the previous negative comments that Brenda Tracy, had made about iconic Michigan State coaches, then President Engler, MSU in general, and even her more recent criticism of Coach Harbaugh. I learned all of that I learned about during this investigation." Why the hell you need to bring up Jim Harbaugh's name, I do not know. Why the hell you need to bring up those other guys? To be frank, I don't know. But at least the other guys were attached to the school that you currently work for. I mean, shit, dude. She's an adult woman. There's probably quite a few people throughout her life that might not love everything she's about. Why don't you just name them all? Just rattle them off there, Mel. What the hell do any of those guys have to do with what you did with her, dude? Come on, man. That's it's the cheapest shit ever, dude. I taught middle school for 7 years, dude. When you accuse a middle schooler of doing something wrong, it's like a reflex. The first thing they do is look at another kid and point. He did it too. I'm not talking to him, dude. Melvin Jean, stop. Just
listen.
bro.
I'm not trying to sympathize with him. I'm not. But if I were in his shoes, I got to believe that you really want to talk about anything other than what you were doing on the phone. So the more that you can add to that story, think about how it's got to be shitty having that out there. I mean, it was written in USA Today. He admitted to doing it. What took place on that phone call. Can't be very comfortable to be walking around East Lansing being like, oh there he is, knowing that took place. So if I can bring in, this guy's name and that guy's name and Harbaugh this, and I'm doing whatever I can do to muddy the waters and make the story so much bigger than what it actually is, which is at the heart of it, Mel Tucker making horrible decisions as a prominent figure at Michigan State University. And it doesn't matter whether or not, they can talk and debate, and there's going to be, there's going to be time for it, whether or not it was consensual and exactly what happened and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, what he's already admitted to, what he's already confessed to, in my mind, is grounds for being fired, because it is such a stupid bonehead decision to get involved with somebody who is only involved with your university to help teach young men how to be respectful towards women and to enlighten them on things like sexual harassment and sexual assault. And so to have that, by the way, being married also doesn't help. So everything that he did in this process, every wrong decision he could make, he made it. And now it seems like it's only a matter of time. Yeah, they're going to go through the process. Yeah, they're going to let it play out. But the general consensus is that Mel Tucker will never coach another football game at Michigan State University, and he shouldn't coach another game. To show that poor judgment in a situation like this, I don't know how you come back from it.
CJ Frazier, as usual, with a great point. Fellas, anybody out there ever had a little taste of a female that you like a lot? Take you 2 months to talk to her again. Not a literal. God damn it! Maybe I should have used a different word. All right, fine. It's whatever. You get some attention from a female that you're really into. You don't talk to her again for 2 months. Come on, bro. That ain't how it works. That is not how it works. And that's a good point by CJ. There's a lot going on here. I mean, I said it to you as soon as we jumped on here. I'm like, wow, interesting point, interesting thing to double down on and just call her a flat out liar. That is
right.
That is ballsy.
And we both agree that now it's not about Mel Tucker wanting to keep his job. Mel Tucker is trying to keep as much of that $80 million as he possibly can. And I think, Michigan State's going to do whatever they can do to not have to pay that out. And my hunch is this will go down as one of the biggest bonehead moves ever from a college football head coach who had everything working behind him, support of the university, dollars coming in, new facilities. They were doing everything they could in East Lansing to help make Mel Tucker a successful head football coach there. And he just threw it away.
I heard someone suggest that Michigan State should go after Urban Meyer. I'm like, well, that dude does it in public. They're not bringing him in there.
I heard somebody on 97 Won the Ticket yesterday suggest that they should go after Deion Sanders. What in the hell makes you think that Deion Sanders wants anything to do with East Lansing?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
God, let's pump the brakes here. I think bringing back the elder Mark D'Antonio was probably the best bet at this point in time. And, we'll see what happens with that coaching job moving forward. But the whole thing, I remember distinctly reading it, seeing the story because it broke like real late. It was like after midnight,
late,
right?
Yeah, on Saturday.
And I'm reading it and I'm tired. And then I see Brenda Tracy's name and I'm like, what? And it just seemed like it was so bizarre. Like, how could this have happened? Like, even if it wasn't her, if it was somebody else, it would have been an issue. But the fact that it was her and what her role is and what her mission is, again, just one of the dumbest decisions anybody could ever make, especially when you're on a $95 million. I mean, dude was set. He wasn't going anywhere. All Michigan State had to do was what? Maybe win 8 games this year, 7 games. I mean, he was going to collect the check. He was fine where he was at. It was going to be hard to get him out of there.
He wasn't going anywhere because their hands were tied.
That's what I'm saying.
He was, even if he had won 4 games this year, they weren't going to get rid of him this year because they would have had to swallow too much of that contract. It was going to be another year, maybe 2, before you actually said, like, all right, we just got to cut ties with this guy. We're going to have to pay him a shitload, but it is what it is at this point. He was entrenched in one of the safest, most secure jobs in America, regardless of results. It's incredible how this thing has flipped. And now you have some of the talking heads who just couldn't slurp him hard enough, saying, like, this is probably better. We didn't really want this guy. Really? You didn't want him, or you don't want him now because when he should have been drawing up X's and O's, he was, polishing the porpoise. He should have probably changed up his priorities a little bit.
I'm not sure if you caught this. I know that we listened to the radio show earlier, but I did find it interesting. Mike Valeni, who we know is not a huge Michigan guy, loves Michigan State University, but he did say, before any of this even happened, before any of this came out, and he said, which I thought was bullshit. He's like, we're not into gossip here. I'm not into gossip. Rico's not into like gossip, making things up, which I was like, okay, that's kind of bullshit a little bit, because those guys, I remember the Mozzie Smith situation for sure.
They alluded to the fact that that Mozzie might be going to shoot somebody. Yeah,
Mozzie was on his way to commit a mass shooting is basically what Rico said.
Compared him to Keith Appling, was it not? Who's now in prison for life for murdering people. Yeah.
Cool, so let's pump the brakes that you don't engage in that type of thing. But Valeni did say before this happened that he had heard some other things that were going on with Mel Tucker that gave him pause, that made him think that this isn't the right guy for the job. So I think that's going to play a factor in this as well. Like, this is obviously a big story. This is all in the news now. It's what a lot of people are talking about, but it sounds like there were some other things going on with Mel Tucker as well behind the scenes that was starting to raise red flags with people who are making decisions around Michigan State. And now it feels like this is just kind of like, okay, now we've got him in a situation. We got to do it right. You can't fire him. You got to let the Title IX process play out. But once everything plays out, he's done. He's gone. We keep our money. Feels like that's where it's headed.
Yeah, there's been some financial things with him that have been underboard and just I mean stuff that you and I probably have no idea about as guys who don't cover that program and aren't involved with that stuff over there. But yeah, Valenti hinted to there was more, there's going to be more that comes out. Like, man, dude, I just the fall from grace has just been epic. I mean, absolutely epic, honestly, on how fast and quickly this happened. But
just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and now back on the field where I thought they'd struggle to get to 6 games. Like, you just want, because if the coach gets fired or leaves or whatever, then the transfer portal heats up even more than before. You already had 2 of their best players. I thought that was hilarious too. They said something about Valenti and Rico said something about like the 2 best players. A caller said the 2 best players left your team. And then, they're talking about Peyton Thorne, who quarterbacked Auburn to a win over Cal. Yeah. And Mike Valenti was like, yeah, how was that 10-7 win over Cal? I'm like, bro, if he was on the team, Noah Kim would be polishing jerseys, dude. Like, let's relax a little bit.
I mean,
if you want, but
let's be real here. You were they trailing, or they were just up by 3 to Central Michigan at halftime? So, let's not talk about how things are going swimmingly out there in East Lansing. Come on.
Yeah. So,
if Peyton Thorne was still in town, there's no question he would be the starting quarterback.
Yeah. It's not even like there's no quarterback battle. He's your guy. Like, yeah. I thought that part was awfully funny.
I mean, has there ever been on this show a more fitting TFG of the week?
No,
than Mel Tucker. This is about as TFG as it gets.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, this is gold standard. I mean, there's not going to be
right up there with the likes of Urban Meyer in a bar. Hands down the back of the jeans type deal.
Pretty bad. That one's pretty bad. I was going to say also Scott Frost getting shit canned in like week 2. He made some repeat appearances, but this is
that was just for being a shitty coach.
This is by far and away this takes the cake for TFG. There's no doubt. No doubt. It's a no doubter. Also,
Tuggin, Mel Tugger. I'm liking the Tuggin analogies here. I think we're going to see a lot of it. Oh my God. Can you wait? Can you wait until Michigan Wolverines invade the woodshed? What's going to be on the shirts? This, you know what?
Yeah.
This might turn into an issue.
Public service announcement. If you're a Michigan State fan, if you like that, don't go. Don't go.
Don't go.
Can we turn the tables on Valenti's rant earlier this year? You might be eating the battery.
You're going to see a lot of shirts that you don't like if you're a Michigan State fan at that game.
Man. Also worth noting that Mel Tucker's wife is a attorney. So not awesome. However that's going to play out. She's probably pissed. You dumbass. Now I can't even get $40 million. I got to settle for 5.
She's going to represent on his behalf just to help him get the pay and then go through the divorce proceedings after that. Yeah. No, we shouldn't make fun. Look, I mean, shitty to be in her position as well. I mean,
absolutely. He said in that release, the most recent one, that they were estranged, that they're not even like together anymore, which I don't know. Whatever. That's for them to figure out. But it's just the level of stupidity. Like you don't really need to go any deeper than that. Like the morality of it, it's so stupid. Like it's just such a stupid thing to do on so many levels for so many reasons.
It was the money, the gold chains, the cigars, the cars. Like it all got to him, man. It all got to him. He flew too close to the sun and he got burned.
Yeah, he was drinking a lot of his own brand for a long time.
A lot. And everybody else was drinking it too. And he
loves the smell of his own farts, dude. That guy loves it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what's been perpetuated here through all this stuff. Like, man, ooh, it's a good brand.
What do you think's going on with Spartan Dog tonight?
Well,
is he pouring one out? He poured one out.
Where did I say before? Once he's done stocking the shelf, he'll punch out. That's offensive to anybody out there who may actually stock shelves for a living. I apologize.
Hey, I did it. I did that for a while.
Yeah, I did it too. Not above that, but yeah. I don't know. See, we don't have the board plugged in. I can't even play it.
What, Spartan Dog?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
That's
maybe
better.
Maybe you heard a little snippet of that. But all right, 40 minutes in, we got a little bit more stuff to talk about when it comes to Michigan. Chris, should we? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna do it very quickly. You can give a thought on it, and then we'll get into burning questions and that.
Burning questions.
But for pro football focus toppers, dude, JJ McCarthy again, some of the highest scores I've ever seen on Pro Football Focus. He was number 1 on offense, 92.1. Drake Nugent, the transfer center, held down the number 2 spot at 77.4. And Roman Wilson, again, was on his game as well at 76.8. On defense, Chris, another score that I'm not sure I've ever seen for a defender before. Mason Graham, a 94 score rating from Pro Football Focus in that game. Kenneth Grant came in at number 2, 79.4. And Jalen Harrell, third, 78.6. So the pressure on the quarterback, the 5 sacks, that obviously tracks when you see Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Jalen Harrell, and JJ McCarthy and Roman Wilson. I mean, if they keep this tear up, they're going to be in the top 3 every week too. So probably no surprises there, I would guess, right?
No surprises there. I mean, all played well. Would expect all to grade very well with PFF. And I'm just seeing it out of the corner of my eye. Just because we were on the topic here, Reese, I just want to say you referenced Jim Harbaugh in the press conference today when I was there. He brought up Brendan Tracy and kind of, his thoughts on the whole thing. Brendan Tracy has put out a statement on Twitter as well, just saying, I really appreciate this stance by Coach Harbaugh. This situation should not be weaponized for the rivalry. And that I agree. And if you get on social media and you see kind of what Michigan fans and Michigan State fans, I mean, dude, can I just say Twitter is a fucking awful place. Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. It is just one of the worst social media platforms out there. And all I've heard is, well, Larry Nassar this and Dr. Anderson this and Bo Schembechler that and blah, 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 and all this other bullshit. I think people just need to I don't know, get away from Twitter for a while and get out of that world. Not everything that happens is tied to every single thing else. Like this instance stands on its own. It doesn't have anything to do with Jim Harbaugh, doesn't have anything to do with Robert Anderson, doesn't have anything to do with Bo Schembechler, doesn't have anything to do with Larry Nassar. And if you're one of those people that continue to play those types of games, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, and it's very visible for others to see.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the first place like your mind goes to, it's just like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about doing that? Yeah, I mean,
Mel Tucker was masturbating on the phone. Oh yeah, well, what about Bo Schembechler? Like what? What are we doing here? I don't understand.
I saw somebody say something like, "Well, Michigan State should probably put a statue of him up." I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Would he be on the phone?
I was just gonna say, what would be the preferred position there? How many hands are going to be visible? I mean, these are things you got to ask yourself. Are we any better than the people we're talking about just now as we launch?
Yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we're much better than those people.
Send one across the bow real quick. All right. That's what Mel Tucker thought. Oh, anyway. Oh. All right, dude. Burning questions. I got 5. You got 5. Do you want to get us going, or what do you think here? I mean, we almost always have the same one. Do you think we have it again? Do you think we have a same burning question?
Keep chopping. I'm sure we do have a similar burning question. I'll kick it off though, Brandon. At the press conference today, Sharon Moore, he's going to be head coach this weekend against Bowling Green. Very excited about that opportunity. He called JJ McCarthy a psychopath today during the press conference. And this was in regards to the fact that, JJ has a hockey background and these coaches want him to get down. They want him to slide. JJ's got the hockey background. He wants the contact, loves the contact, craves the contact. When I first heard Sharon Moore say that, I was like, God damn it. I love that. I love that out of my QB1. Then I thought about it a little bit. And then I thought about the backup QB situation. Then I got a little hesitant. So I'm going to ask you, Brandon, like it or love it that JJ craves the contact?
It's funny that it's like it or love it. Those are my only choices.
I'm sorry. You can either like it or you can love it, Brandon.
I guess I like it a little bit. I mean,
love it
or hate it.
Do you like it? Or do you really like it?
Do you like it like this much or like that
Is
much?
it like this or like that?
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal. You do like hearing it. Cool, JJ, tough guy. Cool, likes a little No, JJ, go out of bounds. Get down. No, JJ, don't get hit. Stop doing that. Dude, he's your golden goose right now.
Yep.
If he plays like this all season, they can beat anybody. I truly believe that. Running game needs to improve. I think it will. Defense has been lights out. I think it'll continue to improve, even though it's been really damn good. This kid is playing on a level that you just don't see. And I've said it. I'll probably say it again. I'm going to write an article specifically about JJ. He's not going to have the crazy inflated numbers, but he's playing this position as good as anybody in the country right now. No questions about it. You gotta be on the field, man. And it's not about toughness. I mean, you can take a shot and bounce right back up, but dude, you land awkward or something and you break a pinky on your throwing hand. That's it, dude. You can't risk that. You got to get out of bounds. You got to take as few hits as possible.
Yeah, I mean, when you're taking hits, you can't really control a shoulder separation. It's either going to happen
100%.
or it's not going to happen. And I'll say this. I both love it and hate it because I love that he's got that type of toughness in him and he's built that way. And I think in the latter part of the season, when you get against Penn State and Ohio State, Big Ten championship, college football playoff, you're going to want to call on that toughness a little bit. You're going to want to utilize it. I love that he's all about the contact. But here in the early part, I think you're right, man. He just looks so damn good playing the position the way he's playing it. Vision, mobility in the pocket, the tight windows he's putting the ball in. I get it. You like the contact. You're a tough guy. Get out of bounds, slide, live to fight another day, at least until we get into the latter part of the season. Then you can unleash.
Yeah, I'm not even going to verbalize it. I'm not going to verbalize it. Just get down. Don't take any hits that you don't need to take. And I know sometimes you can't do anything about it. I think honestly, the one he took on the sidelines right in the chops, he didn't have much else he could do on that play. He kind of got hit from behind. It threw his body out of whack, and then that's why he took the shot in the face.
You're talking about the ECU game?
Yeah, the first game. Sorry, first week. The penalty was called, but the damage was done. I mean, if he had gotten hurt there or gotten a concussion, what could you really do? But it's still football. You're going to take some hits, but he could probably help himself a little bit and not take as many. And I know that
you and I would still be in the emergency room if we took that same hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing this from a gurney, just dinging a bell.
Trying to get my thumbs up on the
All right. Chris, I like to throw these at you once in a while on a scale of 1 to 10. Scale of 1 to 10. How worried are you about one Donovan Edwards?
Worried? I'm gonna go 5.
Okay.
I'm I'm right in the middle of the road. I'm not overly worried yet, but I'm sure as hell a lot more worried than I was going into the season where my concern was 0. I'm not at 0 now. I'm wondering what the issue is, why he's not, why it hasn't come together. And I know it's not just him. It's the offensive line. It's the wide receivers blocking. There's a lot of different things that go into it. But now that we've seen it for 2 weeks in a row, 6 carries for 9 yards for a running back who, quite frankly, is elite, a guy that we think would start on 99% of other college football programs out there. I just have a hard time stomaching six carries for 9 yards out of Donovan Edwards, regardless of who the comp. I get that they're stacking the box. Whatever the case is, he needs to be better. The offensive line needs to be better. I'm at a solid 5 right now on Donovan Edwards. I do believe it's going to get better, but this is now the second week that I'm saying that. And as the weeks stack up, then it's going to start to become a bigger problem. He's got to have a big game against Bowling Green. The rushing game as a whole needs to have a big game against Bowling Green.
For all the reasons, see, Mark, this is where I 100% disagree. I thought he's looked very quick and very fast at times. He just hasn't been able to get going. I mean, and that's why I said, talking to Blake and his dad for just a minute as they were literally driving out of the stadium, Blake's dad said there just hasn't been anywhere for him to go. There just hasn't been anywhere for Donovan Edwards to go. again, to your point, Chris, that's O-line, that's play calling, that's situational football, that's keying on what I mean, there's a lot of factors. It's not just in fact, it's probably less about Donovan than it is about those other things, but you've got to figure that out. So I'm going to put the worry at about a 7. I think the way you explained it was good, though, because when you came into the season, it was certainly a 0. So to crank it way up, I saw some people saying 8, 9, 10. I don't think I'd go that high. I'd probably say 6 or 7 because I do think, like you said, it's a couple layers deep. He's not been productive. And because he's not been productive, he's not getting very many opportunities, and that's not good. Like, that's what you don't want to see with your two-headed monster at running back. So I'm a little bit worried, and again, the competition does play a part of that. Like, if you had told me before the season started, hey, guess what? ECU and UNLV, they're going to put 10 in the box. I've been like, cool, let them do it. It's not going to change anything, but it has. It has changed something, and so that's a little bit worrisome. So I'll put it at about a 6 or a 7.
You know what, Brandon? I'm going to steal your 1 through 10 level of concern here, but I'm going to use it as it relates to the backup quarterback situation right now. As I said earlier, it's clear that the backup quarterback battle is still up for grabs. There's a number of guys, Davis Warren, Jack Tuttle, Alex Orji, Jaden Denegal, but none of these guys have really solidified themselves. So I'm going to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the current status of the backup quarterback situation in Ann Arbor?
See, this one's tricky because if you've got a healthy J.J. McCarthy, it's 0. I mean, it doesn't freaking matter at all. I mean, that's
the kid who loves contact, the kid who doesn't want to get down.
That's what we're really asking about. The question really should be, how worried are you about J.J. staying healthy? Because that's really what it comes down to. But to your point, like, if nobody has really solidified themselves, and if what we're seeing on the field these last 2 weeks is what what the battle, I'm like, shit, that's the battle? That's what you're trying to. I don't like it. I'm pretty freaking worried about it. Probably like an 8. I just hope it doesn't ever come down to that. I hope we don't have to see those guys in crunch time. But football's tough, dude. Guys have to come out for a play or two or a series, or run back to the locker room for something because they got dinged. I mean, it happens. It happens every year to every program. Until, and we've only seen him for a play. I felt really good about Jack Tuttle. I did. Before the season, spring game, I'm like, oh, dude, put him in there. Let him run it a little bit. Let him throw it on the move. He's probably got a connection with A.J. Barnes. Like, he'll be all right. He'll be all right if you have to go get something for a little bit. Now, he played the one play, made a really nice read, and then now he's out a little bit banged up, and we haven't even seen Alex Orji, who's the other guy that I think, like, you run a little different offense with him, but I like what he brings to the table. So, yeah, I'd say it's about an 8, man, because it just looks like you've got 4 guys there. None of them have extended themselves. None of them have looked all that good in anything we've seen yet this year. And we haven't even seen Orji. Actually, we've only seen 3 of them. So I don't like it. I don't like where it's at right now, 2 weeks into the season.
You were at what number are you at?
I said an 8.
Yeah, I am at a solid 8, borderline 9 at this point. And there's a couple reasons for it. One, we haven't seen all the guys, and the guys we have seen haven't looked great. Number 2, the rushing game, Blake Corum had a decent game last weekend, but the rushing game hasn't been what we thought it was going to be. This team is relying heavily on how good JJ has been and Roman Wilson. Let's not take anything away from the wide receivers. You need people out there to catch the ball, but by and large, it's been JJ McCarthy's playmaking ability, all those things we talked about, moving the ball down the field. And so if you lose him, I am extremely concerned about what this offense looks like without a guy like JJ out there on the field. So for me, it is definitely a solid 8. I think you got to get Jaden Denegal more of a run. You certainly got to get Alex Orji in the game. You got to see what he's about. And I do agree. I think Jack Tuttle is probably one of those guys that, if I had to put money on it, my money's there. But he had one play before he had to go out and couldn't return. Yeah. So, that just goes to show how quickly things can change. They've got to get this situation figured out. And I mean, it's hard for Alex Orji to make a case when he's not on the field. The kid's got to get out and get some reps. We heard so much about him in the preseason, how physical he is, what an athlete he is. For him to be the only guy who hasn't made an appearance in that quarterback room is puzzling to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris, my second one is a builds upon my first one, and we talked about it a little bit, so some of the same stuff might come up here. It's another scale, 1 to 10. What's your concern with the offensive line? Because obviously that's a big reason why Donovan Edwards can't get going. It's a big reason why they've been stuffed a handful of times, whether it was Blake or Donovan on short yardage or goal line. I just, it's obviously clearly something's a little bit amiss in the machine that is Michigan running the ball.
I'll go same as Donovan Edwards. I'll go 5. Maybe I'll go a click back 4 because the pass protection has been great. But in terms of running the ball, which we thought was going to be the bread and butter, it just hasn't been there. And when you factor in how good this offensive line has been, back-to-back Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, I mean, this unit has been solid for a while now, and it just doesn't look the way I thought it was going to look early in the season here against inferior opponents. And so for that reason, I want to say 5, but then I got to take into account how good they've been in pass pro. I'll dial it back to a 4. But that unit up front, Donovan Edwards, the running backs, they have got to get better. You can't wait until you get into the thick of the season to try to figure it out, because if UNLV can stop you by running a certain defense and ECU can stop you, then what do you think these other better teams are going to do? I mean, you're going to have to figure it out at some point, and you better do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because then maybe you've got a guy who's 20 or 30 pounds heavier and a step quicker on a bigger, better team in the Big Ten. And then all of a sudden you've got a DB who might be able to run with Roman Wilson a little bit, where you haven't seen that through these first 2 weeks. The whole dynamic of everything changes. If you can stack the box and keep this running game in check, it's going to give teams a chance that I frankly didn't think they would have before the season started. Whether it's the transfer guys, I mean, Drake Nugent graded out well. He's been the starter at center. You've got Miles Hinton out there at the right guard spot. Carson Barnhart playing right tackle for Miles Hinton. I don't know, man. I remember earlier in the season when we were talking about all these bodies they have and all these guys that you might want to put in different spots. Do you think, is it just, am I panicking way too much by thinking maybe you move guys around a little bit? I mean, do you experiment with Trevor Keegan at left tackle? And then maybe you've got Gio El-Hadi at left guard, or maybe Barnhart's a little better. I don't know what it is, but something does look a little bit off with the amount of push that they're not getting. The holes are not seemingly there for guys like Donovan Edwards. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing at this point. I don't think I would shake it up, but I wonder what those discussions sound like inside Schembechler Hall.
Well, I'll say this. During the press conference today, Sharon Moore said, I've got my starters on the offensive line. Now, it can change from week to week, but it's based on how guys perform. We've seen what the starting unit looks like. Those are his starters. And so I don't think he has any intention of rotating guys around, moving a piece here, moving a piece there. I think it's just a matter of, these guys have to get it together. It's not fall camp. It's not spring ball. Now it's live action. You've got to find a way to mesh. I do think they'll do it, but I said it in week 1, and now I'm saying it in week 2. As you start to stack on the weeks and it kind of looks similar, it becomes a bigger and bigger concern. Right now, I'm only at a 4.
If I say this to you, Chris, I mean, what makes your antenna go up? All right, so you've got Drake Nugent at center. You got Zach Zinner at right guard.
Yeah.
Put Carson Barnhart back over at right tackle where he was last year when they won the Joe Moore Award.
Yep.
Bump Trevor Keegan out to left tackle. Bring in, maybe it's Gio El-Hadi, maybe it's Ladarius Henderson, who started 20-plus games at left guard. I think that was where a lot of people thought, like, oh, there's your left. He wasn't really a left tackle. He was he played left tackle, but he was a left guard. Now, I think that's a downgrade at guard because Trevor Keegan's probably one of the best in the country, but it might be an upgrade at left tackle. I don't know. I mean, you've got 2 such good guards that I don't know if you even wanted to think about moving them. But I mean, ultimately, you're trying to get the best 5 at their best position on the field together. And I don't know. Well, I wonder if those discussions are taking place.
Well, I can tell you right now, Sharon Moore believes he has it right now with the guys that are there. Yeah.
So there you go. All right, back to you, my friend. Back to you.
Back to me. Well, I did have a rushing question, but I feel like we already addressed that when we were talking about Donovan Edwards. So I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to go back to a conversation that you and I had prior to the season, where I asked you about, last year we know that Blake Corum was certainly a Heisman candidate, would have been a finalist had he stayed healthy, would have been in New York. Not saying he would have won it, had a good shot at it, but certainly would have been there in New York for the ceremony. We talked about who the top 3 candidates were for Michigan. I brought them up. I said JJ, Blake, and Donovan, if you were to put a few guys out there. And I asked you, do you think any of those guys make it to New York by the end of the season? And you said no. You didn't think any Wolverine would be in New York. 2 weeks in, we've seen JJ, we've seen Donovan, we've seen Blake. Has your mind changed at all about the potential of seeing a Wolverine in New York?
Think there could be a front runner about all of them, and it's none of those guys. It's probably Roman Wilson right now, dude. You keep going through catching 2 or 3 touchdowns a game as a wide receiver, you're going to be in the discussion as a Heisman candidate. Now, JJ, the problem I've always said with him is that he is just the production I don't think is going to be there. I mean, if you're talking about, let's say he beats the Michigan touchdown passing record pretty easily, and he had, at the end of the 12 games, he's got 31. Dude, there's going to be 20 quarterbacks with more touchdown passes than that. And there's probably going to be a couple on just as good of teams, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, who are going to get the nod over a quarterback like JJ, who just isn't going to have those inflated numbers. I thought the reason why maybe Blake and Donovan wouldn't is because they cannibalize each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously Donovan hasn't been putting up big numbers. Blake's rushing yards haven't been very eye-popping. He scored, multiple touchdowns already, but I don't know, man. It's just Michigan is not one of these high-octane offenses that's going to put up a ton of numbers that you like to see on a Heisman candidate. It just feels like that's not what this team is built for. They probably don't. I mean, I don't think Jim Harbaugh cares about it at all. I'm sure one of these kids would love to go to New York and represent Michigan themselves and their family as a Heisman candidate, but I'll still say no. I still think no. I still think the numbers just aren't going to be there for a Wolverine.
Yeah, well, I disagree. And I understand that JJ will not have gaudy numbers compared to some of the other quarterbacks out there. But I'm going to read through this. And they haven't played elite competition, but here's where JJ ranks within the conference 2 weeks into the season. He's number 1 in completions, number 1 in completion percentage, over 87%. Tied for first in touchdown places, number 1 in quarterback efficiency, number 2 in passing yards. He is unquestionably the top quarterback in the Big Ten Conference. If Michigan goes on to have the type of season that we still all kind of think that they could have, assuming some things get worked out, you're talking Big Ten championship, you're talking college football playoff, you're talking about a potential national championship. I don't think he has to throw 40-plus touchdowns to be in New York. If he can be as precise, as efficient, if he can look the rest of the season the way he's looked the first 2 weeks of the season, I think there's a pretty good chance you see number 9 in New York. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he's got all the makings of a Heisman Trophy winner. Then you talk about all the stuff off the field, who he is as a person. I mean, all of that stuff gets factored into it. Obviously, it's a numbers-based deal. We know that they love quarterbacks winning that award. To me, if JJ keeps on this trajectory, 2 touchdown passes week in, week out, 6 incompletions, I feel like this guy has the best shot on this team to make it to New York. Wouldn't be surprised to see it happen.
I'd probably agree with that. Out of the people on the roster, I'd probably put him number 1 as the most likely to make it. And I mean, dude, when you extrapolate the numbers out, I mean, if he's thrown for 3,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, and he's completing freaking 85% of his passes, it's going to be hard to not send him. I mean, we'll see that the clip that he is completing his passes at right now is going to be so hard to keep up. But he looks
what else?
Locked in.
If you watch the film on him and the way he plays and the types of throws he's making, it's really hard. I mean, in terms of just talent, not numbers wise, where do you put him at? Is he top 5 talented quarterback in the country? Is he top 3? Where do you place him?
I think I put him at number 2 behind Caleb Williams. Some of the throws he's made have been out of this world too.
But then that to me says,
I'd put him at number 2. Yeah, I'd put him at number 2. I think he's got more arm talent than Drake May. Drake May's bigger. He's probably a little stronger armed. Michael Penix has got a really live. I mean, there's some really good quarterbacks in this year's class.
Yeah.
There really is, but I'd put JJ right in that discussion, top 2 or 3.
You got Noah Kim out there slinging the ball around the field.
Spartan Dogs. Yeah, there's some really good ones. There's some really good ones this year. I think I'd put JJ right in there. Yeah, Shedeur Sanders is getting some love.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. You know what? I know this is going to be very ironic coming from somebody who covers Michigan, but wake me up when Colorado plays somebody. Until then, I don't want to hear shit about that.
That's interesting that you say that, JR, and I'm pretty objective when I don't think you can say it so emphatically. There's no way he's better than Drake May. I don't think you could say that. Yeah, I don't think you could say that at all. I mean, if I'm drafting a franchise quarterback, I may lean towards Drake May because he's a little bit bigger, a little bit more built for that kind of physicality. I think that's a fair assessment, but I don't think there's any way you could say it. There's no way he's better than Drake May. I think he's in that discussion. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I haven't watched a ton of Drake May, but I've seen bits and pieces of what he's done, and I think JJ could do the exact same things over there in that offense. I don't think it would look any different. I don't know.
All I'll say is go back and watch the film. Forget what the defense is. Go back and watch the film. Show me a weakness in JJ's game so far through 2 weeks because I don't see it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, Chris, we touched on this earlier. It's not like a huge discussion point. I just found it strange. And, when we're talking about burning questions, it's things that burn at you a little bit. I'm going to ask it straight up. Why the hell did Will Johnson only play 8 snaps? Well, what is that? What do we think of that? Why not start him, not play him? He's over there with no gloves, no helmet. Then he's in there for 8 snaps and he doesn't play again. I can't quite figure out what that's about.
I don't know. Because if there's something going on, if there's an injury, then to me there's no point. Maybe it was one of those situations where you wanted him to get out there and test whatever it was in live game action because you're making, no matter how much you try to practice live reps, it's just not live reps. So get out there, move around, play at game speed, and then come out. Tell me how you feel. Did everything feel all right? Let's get ready for next week.
My argument for that is then why isn't it at the beginning? Why is it 3 series into the game? It's just bizarre to me. That's all. I don't know.
Yeah, well, probably because if you're not going to be playing Will Johnson the whole game, you don't want to start. You want whoever you're going to be leaning on the most to start the game, be out there, get in the role, and then get Will Johnson out there, see how it feels, move around, get back out, and then get your other guys back in there. And now at this point, they're not going in for the first time. They already started. They've already been out there. So I guess the more I think it through, the more that's the only sense I can make of it is you're trying to test out something to make sure it's working right.
I like your breakdown. That does actually make sense. If you think like, all right, here's Keyshawn Harris or here's even Josh Wallace, who's still new to the program. Here's your Jade McBurrows, guys that haven't played a lot. Get them a start, get them lathered, get them out there. All right, Will, let's go test the ankle or the hammy or the hip or whatever it is. Cool, 8 snaps, you good? Get him. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I did think it was weird because I didn't think he was going to play, and then he was in there and he looked good, and then he's back out again. It just struck me as odd.
It's like NASCAR, Brandon. Like I always say, it's like NASCAR. Okay, you need to get your car out on the track. You got to take a few laps in it to make sure everything's working right before you get it in the Daytona 500. You can't just take it out there cold. You got to get a few laps in. I think that's what they're doing with Will Johnson.
You ain't rubbing, you ain't racing, Chris. Woo! All right. That's mine. Short one, easy one. What you got? Should be your fourth one, I believe.
But this will be my final one because we pretty much had a similar one on the rushing one where it was level of concern. So I'm going to ask kind of maybe I'll let you go again. Is yours Michigan specific? Mine's Michigan specific, but it's a bigger picture question.
I've got another pretty specific one if you want me to go again.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask yours.
Chris, I'm trying not to be that guy, dude. I'm trying not to nitpick too much. On 35-7 wins, a 30-3 win. But Chris, damn it, dude, for the second week in a row, AJ Barner is outpacing Colson Loveland in snaps by a good bit. And is it just we're gonna run the ball, jumbo, Barner, or like I just don't know how you don't play Colson Loveland more than almost every offensive pass catcher on your team. I'm that high on the kid.
Yeah. I don't have a good explanation for it. I really don't. That's something where if we see it again for a third week, it's something that we should ask at the press conference. We'll make sure that we bring it up. It's not, but it is similar to what we heard about Alex Orji. When you hear about a guy during the offseason, how good he is, how elite he is, the types of catches he's making, it's incredible, on and on and on. Why is he not getting the bulk of the reps? Why are we not seeing that on the field? The only thing I can say is, and I hate this, and I know you hate it too, but it's early in the season. Get the other guys some reps, whatever. Otherwise I can't make sense of it. But he's not injured. He's not hurt.
This kind of stuff has reared its head before. Remember Josh Uche when he went to the pros?
Yes.
The NFL scouts were like, how the hell did that guy only play 45% of Michigan's defensive snaps? What do they do? What are they doing? I'm of the same thought. Like, if he's one of your best players, and I think that Colston Loveland is one of the best 11 offensive players on this team, he should play a lot. He should not be behind Trente Jones as the 6th offensive lineman. That didn't happen in week 2. It did happen in week 1. And like, I'm not knocking Barner. I thought that was a good pickup for Michigan. He's going to be very valuable. Absolutely. I don't think he should be playing more than Colston Loveland. I just don't. And you can't really say, because I see Dwayne saying, he's probably a better blocker. But it's not like they've been calling a bunch of run plays. It's been pretty balanced. So, yeah, I don't know. It's formation. It's situational. It's opponent. I don't know. That's 2 weeks in a row now where one of my favorite offensive players is being outpaced by other guys, and I just don't really know why that would be the case. That's all.
I agree. I think it's a valid concern, Brandon. It's another one of those things where as the weeks stack on, then we can address it. Right now, I think it might just be you're trying to get guys acclimated and see what you have with them, because for sure what you got with Colston Loveland. At least that's what we've been told. I'd like to see it translate on Saturdays. Right. My last question for you, Brandon, is we've had the opportunity to not just watch Michigan over the last 2 weeks, but we've had the opportunity to watch a lot of college football around the country the last 2 weeks. And I said this early on when you asked me, forget what the question was, but I told you I routinely forget when I'm watching Michigan that I'm watching the number 2 team in the country play. So I'm going to ask you, do you truly think that Michigan is the number 2 team in the country right now? Forget what the AP says. Forget what the rankings are. Do you believe, second only to Georgia, that Michigan is the number 2 team in the country? If yes, fine. If not, who would you put it? I mean, you've got Florida State with a big win over LSU. You've got Texas, who just beat Bama and Tuscaloosa. You got Notre Dame, USC, Penn State. Is Michigan number 2? And if not, who's ahead of them?
Okay, I've got a double answer. Are you ready for it?
Let's hear it.
Ceiling, yes, Michigan is number 2. Currently, they're not. That's how I feel. I think you could go down that list, and there's a handful of teams that would beat Michigan right now. I think Florida State would beat Michigan right now with how they're playing.
Yep.
I think Texas would beat Michigan right now with how they're playing.
Yes.
I think USC would be a freaking handful. They don't play very good defense, but Michigan's not going to slow them down on offense, I don't think. Or slow them down, yes, but I think that would be a real back and forth between those 2 teams. Penn State has looked pretty damn good. Well, we've continued to say that trip to Happy Valley is going to be a freaking handful.
What are your thoughts on Notre Dame?
I think Michigan and Notre Dame would play a very similar type of game. I think Michigan's got better players, so I would take them by a little bit. Not by a lot. Sam Hartman's looked good. Their running attack has been more effective. I like Michigan's passing attack better right now, receiving core. But yeah, I think I'd put those 4 or 5 teams probably would beat Michigan right now, or at least give them all that they could handle. And so, to answer the question just outright, I don't think Michigan is the second best team in the country right now. I see people saying I'm out of my mind. You got to take the Mason Boo goggles off, man. Have you watched these other teams? Like, no, dude. Yeah. Like, Florida State looked like a lot to handle. Both sides of the ball. They've got a Heisman contender at quarterback. They've got a scary receiving core. They've got NFL edge rushers. They've got speedy. Like, I don't get it. I don't know what. I would like some constructive criticism as to why I would be out of my mind. Mr. Fletch lives daily.
Well, I you know what, Brandon? As much as I hate to do it, I'm going to jump in the boat with you. And yeah, I'm going to say that right now, and I love Michigan. I devote my life to covering them. We both love this football program. Right now, are they the number 2 team in the country? I don't think so. I do think Florida State would beat them. I struggle to see a way that this team, as they've produced the first 2 weeks, would beat a team like Texas. They're solidly in the top 5. There's no doubt. They're one of the top teams in the country. But it's also very apparent to me that Michigan has some things that they've got to work out, they've got to figure out, that I haven't really seen with some of these other teams that are playing at an elite level so far. So I just thought it was an interesting question, because when we talked about it earlier, like I said, I constantly forget that this is the number 2 team in the country that I'm watching right now. And then I go home and I turn on the TV and I look at some of these other teams play across the country, and I'm like, shit, man, if Michigan had to line up against them tonight, neutral field, neutral territory, I don't know. This
is exactly one of the other points I was just about to make. The difference between Michigan and a lot of those teams I just named, they played somebody. Dude, Texas just went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, dude. Come on.
Right, no,
give them their roses.
And Flesh lives daily. No, we're not throwing Colorado in there, because Colorado beat a TCU team that's not very good and a Nebraska team that's not very good. So no, Colorado is not in the conversation. But Texas went to Tuscaloosa and beat Bama. Yeah. Now you can say whatever you want about Bama. You know, they're not the Bama of 5 years ago, whatever that's still going to Tuscaloosa and playing Bama on their. That's not an easy game to win. And then Florida State looked great against LSU. And I get that LSU isn't, they're not the LSU of old either, but those teams aren't slouches.
Dude, Fletch, Florida State pounded LSU by 21 points and Michigan won by 27 over ECU. And I'm crazy for saying that they look better, that the Noles look. Dude, you got to take them off sometimes, man. You got to take them off. If you're going to have these discussions about
It's okay to say that Michigan is a top 5 team.
Fletch, look me in the eyes right now in this camera and say that Michigan is going on a neutral field and beating LSU by 21 points with the way they played so far. Give me a break, dude. You got to be able to be objective. You got to be able to do it. Okay? Now, I'm not saying Michigan out of the top 25.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm putting them at 5 or 6, 4 maybe. Listen, I don't know.
We watched a team that has a great defense, quarterback who's dealing, but an offensive line and a rushing game that has left a lot to be desired, and they still have some things to figure out.
LSU might be booty, but I'm willing to bet they beat the fucking brakes off of ECU or UNLV. Like, fellas, you gotta think about it big picture. Like, Michigan hasn't. That's why I said earlier in the game, I wish Michigan would have won 83-0. They didn't. It was 30-3 and 35-7. You got to take some of those things into account.
Fair question. Fair question, Fletch. At what point does Michigan pass them? I think when you see a guy like Donovan Edwards get more than 9 yards on 6 carries, when you see what was billed as one of the top elite running back tandems in the country have a solid outing, when you see an offensive line that can put together a run blocking scheme, open up some holes and let these guys operate. And so keep in mind, the rushing attack is supposed to be Michigan's bread and butter. Jim Harbaugh himself today said it's not good enough. Blake Corum says it's not good enough. Donovan Edwards says it's not good enough. And because that's such a big part of what Michigan does, and it has been so ineffective through 2 weeks against, let's be honest, cupcake schedule. Everybody wants to talk about the cupcake. Well, Michigan has struggled to run the ball against those cupcakes. So for me, it's a slight concern. And when I look at other teams around the country, yeah, Bama might not be the Bama of old, but that's still Tuscaloosa. That's still Nick Saban. They still have elite athletes down there. When you go in and you win a game like that, that says something. And so, again, it's not a knock on Michigan to say they are not the number 2 team in the country right now. Yeah, are they ranked at number 2? Sure, that's where they started. Until they lose, they will stay there likely.
Now, Fletch, now you're making a different point. I didn't say that I would be afraid to line Michigan up against those two. That's not. Now you're moving the goalpost a little bit. I just said, based on what we've seen through 2 weeks, I think you could put a couple other teams ahead of Michigan. That's it. And I think that's very fair, very valid, and I think there's evidence to support it. That's all.
I think you can make a strong case to put Florida State and Texas over Michigan right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
And if not, I mean, you're talking about, listen, how confident are you that Michigan could go down to Texas right now and beat the Longhorns in their building?
Not very, to be honest.
How confident are you that Michigan could go to Doak Campbell and beat Florida State right now?
Not very.
So,
if you don't even need to look past anything else if you want to just leave it at quality of wins. Like those are big wins early in the season for those teams. Texas going to Bama and winning, Florida State winning over LSU. Those are big wins. Michigan can't even compare to that right now. I don't even really need to go any deeper than that.
Dwayne Jones, we're arguing this right now because this is what we do. We talk sports. This is like Brandon and I sitting on the couch. We literally, you came over to watch football afterwards. After the UNLV game, and we were watching Texas Bama, and I asked you the question. I'm like, how do you think Michigan would do against these two teams? We were watching them kind of go back and forth, and so that's what we do here, man. We talk about this type of stuff. It's sports talk. Don't take it personally. It doesn't mean we hate the Michigan Wolverines. It just means that after 2 weeks of watching this team and not seeing quite what I thought I would see out of the running game, and take into account some of the things I've seen around the country. Yes, Michigan is solidly a top 5 team. Are they the best number 2 team right now in the country? I'm not so sure. And that's okay. It's okay to say that. Nobody's going to hang you.
I'm also totally fine with them continuing to stay there until they lose. I mean, like, I've never really been like a huge fan of like early on in the season jumping a bunch of people because of a bigger game win. Like if you don't lose, like I don't think you should fall down, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. So
and that answers Mark's question. Mark Schenk, I think, if I pronounce that right. Should they fall?
I didn't even see that. No, I don't think they should fall.
If they continue to win, they should stay right put at number 2, unless they have, one of those Ohio State type wins where you look like shit and there's clearly some big time issues, but you still get the W, and maybe somebody else outperforms you that weekend. But no, I think if Michigan continues to win, JJ keeps playing the way he's playing, I think naturally the running game will get better and they will stay at that number 2 spot. But if you were to ask me, how confident am I against Texas right now? I'm inclined to lean Texas. I'm inclined to lean Florida State. I'm inclined to lean Georgia. Michigan needs to have a better rushing effort. This
is where it's fun to do the week to week, this power rankings. That's a different thing than actual ranking or AP top 25 or coaches poll or whatever. Power rankings. Who's the most powerful? Who's doing the best right now? And I think that is a slightly different argument. I would not move Michigan down out of number 2 because they've only won by 27 and 28 as opposed to 60. But I think you can take an objective look at game by game, and there's a couple other teams that are a little scarier right now. Look a little powerful, look a little more complete, look a little more polished early in the year.
Oregon put up 81 points in week 1, and we're not saying, well, Oregon could give Michigan, so it's not just about the flash. It's about you sit back and you watch how some of these teams perform and in the environments they do it in, and you say, you compare that to what you've seen out of Michigan. And again, the only issue with Michigan right now, the only puzzling issue is the rushing attack. And we're not the only ones saying it. Harbaugh's talked about it. Sharon Moore, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum's dad. They all see it. So we know that there is a issue that needs to be fixed, and it's Michigan's bread and butter. So you have to fix that moving forward. Absolutely.
No doubt. Well, I mean, obviously that was a pretty good question right there, Chris. Wow, I like that.
I didn't think that get the people riled up here.
Damn
it, Brandon.
Riled is okay.
That's what we needed. We need a little emotion here. I didn't have any alcohol, so we needed some emotion.
Yeah. I think that is a fun. What was the final score for Texas, Alabama? Do you remember off the top?
I don't have it. No, I don't.
Because, Alabama.
Dude, how great is it to talk college football? It's back. We're here. We're in the thick of it. Embrace it.
Somebody will probably put up the score before I can get to it.
34-24. 34-24.
So with that being said, a 10-point win for Texas in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, I feel like you could probably put if you took Michigan, Alabama, neutral field right now, I don't know. I might lean Alabama. That'd be a close one. So I think
Michigan's not running the ball. I'm for sure leaning Alabama. I mean, I think JJ will be good, but you got to get something out of the running game.
There you go. All right, well, we'll be back.
Thieves of joy. Joy.
That's what we do. I'm freaking starving. I'm going upstairs to eat. Chris needs alcohol.
I think nuggets. I got to go have a drink.
All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday night.
Appreciate you.